this video is actually a pretty normal crash out for especially LGBTQ oriented people, but it's a pretty normal thing. What's actually even more surprising is the comment section, but I do want to go over this video first because it's the same old thing, but coming from the mindset of Dearborn, Michigan, which is quite the hot thing right now.
Hi, I'm JoJo. I'm an alumni of DPS, and I started working at a school running a before and after school program. I am queer and transgender. More specifically, I am non-binary.
You're not, though. You're not, because, queer in this reference is of, relating to, or characterized by sexual or romantic attraction to members of one's own sex, aka homosexuality. Now, this is really just a political correctism, deriving from the way that queer meant odd, strange, or weird. It was just a politically correct way to suggest that someone was probably not heterosexual, right? They were a bit weird, right? They were a bit queer. And then it became a disallowed word, and then it became an allowed word again, sort of, sometimes. I mean, you've seen it before. People who don't add the Q onto LGBTQ because they're not sure whether or not they're allowed to say it. But then they said that they were transgendered. Well, being transgendered means that you're someone of the opposite sex. Okay, well, transgender does typically align with being homosexual, so that tracks. But hang on. You're also non-binary. Well, non-binary means relating to or being a person who identifies with or expresses a gender identity that is neither entirely male nor entirely female. So, this is the problem with LGBTQ and the extreme left, and this is the problem with brainwashing and conditioning children into thinking that they're something that they aren't. I mean, are they queer? Are they trans? Are they non-binary? Are they any of those things? They can't be all three. Are they any of them? Do they know? Are they just what people tell them to be? That's probably the answer, isn't it? They're probably just what people tell them to be because they're a 19-year-old child who's spent their entire life drifting through propaganda of people telling them what they should be and them aligning themselves with all the feel-goods and the positive vibes.
I use they, them pronouns.
Okay, so you're not transgendered if you use they, them, because you're clearly a female, biologically, which means that you would be he, she if you were transgendered. Again, like, what are you exactly? You don't even know, even though you're telling us.
Well, this is a huge part of my overall identity, and I'm very proud.
Huge part of their overall identity. Just keep that in mind.
To be queer and transgender. It is not
queer and transgender. What's the point of saying that, by the way? I mean, I don't know. Like, why double down on it? I mean, you just say transgendered. People assume you're gay if you say that. It's not necessarily true. I'm sure there's loads of bi people who are trans, and I mean, you assume it, but what's the point?
Not my entire identity. When you are young, it is incredible.
It's not your entire identity. Well, the first 20 seconds of this video seems to be your identity, sure. And it's really the rest of it as well.
Incredibly difficult to be unable to put names to what you're feeling and experiencing.
You're not feeling or experiencing anything naturally, though, in this case. People are telling you what you should believe, what you should be. It's not like a natural experience for a child to think that they don't have a gender. I mean, despite what the extreme left will say, they'll say, oh, well, some ancient mythological god from the Greek lore was hermaphrodite, and therefore it's actually... No, shut up. There's no words you need to be feeling when you're 10 years old regarding your gender. You're just a kid.
It was only very recently I was able to put the name to the cold, lonely, and isolating feeling I get as gender dysphoria.
A 19-year-old talking about gender dysphoria when they describe themselves as queer, transgender, and non-binary. Which, again, means that someone is claiming that they don't have a gender.
Had I been aware of the books and resources available to students in the libraries, I have no doubt I would have had an easier time accepting myself and relating to others.
Please allow the speaker to speak.
I do agree they should shut the hell up. Let someone speak if they're on a microphone. But right there, what they did was they blamed everyone else for their problems. Classic strategy. Classic child strategy. Nothing is my fault, everything's your fault. My life would have been great if not for you. If you had allowed LGBTQ books to be taught to children, then my life would have been great. But instead,
Being LGBTQ plus is not a choice, and it is
oof, well, this has been a thing for a long time, and not just about gender identity or sexuality or anything, but it's been a mainstay excuse for that. Like saying God made me gay. God didn't make you gay. Well, that's insane to say that. It's just an excuse. It's sympathy farming. Well, you see, you can't hate me, Christian person, because your God made me gay. It's trying to it's just trying to negotiate these things instead of farming sympathy. Instead of saying that it's not your fault, just say that you're interested in someone of the same gender. People don't really care. Like adults don't really care what other adults want to do with things like that because they have better things to do with their lives. I mean, don't you? Like doesn't every adult have something better to do with their lives than sit there and seethe over who someone else wants to screw? It's not that people get upset about. It's them parading down the streets nearly naked. It's them trying to teach kids to be trans or whatever. It's trying to give preteens puberty blockers. That's what upsets people. And all of these people being told that they're evil, which they will be told very soon, that they are evil because they didn't brainwash their children into being trans. I mean, have you really paid attention to how many young people these days, literal children in many cases, think that they are, in this girl, sorry, they's case, they're queer, transgender, and non-binary. That's not even possible, and yet that's what they are saying. They have no idea what they themselves are or want or what have they've been conditioned to be, but it's everyone else's fault. And if they had had books when they were growing up, their life would have been so much better. Mind you, they're 19, which means that they had an iPhone their entire life growing up. Which, oh, sorry, a 19-year-old white person in the USA, clearly they had the entire world's information at their fingertips. And they're going to complain about not having the gay BCs from the moment they were born?
so hard to have your mind stuck in a body you feel isn't your own while people hate you for the very thing out of your control.
Why would people hate you for that unless you told them? Like, you're telling me that wearing a t-shirt and a pair of pants lets everyone know that you're a queer, transgender, non-binary? Or did you go out of your way to tell them all of that? Did you go out of your way to stand in front of a microphone and tell everyone that you are that? Because they wouldn't know. None of these people would have any idea about that. And this is a big part of it. Like I'm not saying that we should need to hide who we are, but at the same time, we don't need to walk down the streets in a thong wearing a rainbow cape preaching about our identities. It's the complete opposite. We just mind your own business and stop making a problem and no one will care. Well, very few people will care. I mean, a lot of those people might care, but that's because of religion and all that, which is an issue in and of itself, but a different issue, really.
People who don't know the first thing about you, only that you're different from them, so you must be evil.
Which is exactly what people in LGBTQ and the left wing, by and large, say about everyone else. That's what they say about everyone who doesn't accept them and everything they care about. Well, you're not like me, you must be evil. You won't allow me to do whatever I want, so you must be evil. Isn't that funny how everyone has the same excuse?
I honestly don't want to be here, but I know what it's like to have been a queer and trans student and now a staff member. I personally found a way to deal with the blatant transphobia I faced as a student through my peers and staff members, even though I still deal with it on a daily basis. I refuse to let other children be traumatized in the same way I was.
Traumatized by what exactly? They just say that they were. I mean, what did they even say, really? They just said that their life could have been better if they had books, that they had to deal with transphobia. That doesn't really mean anything, especially because people can look at you the wrong way from across the street, and someone will say that they've been attacked. I mean, it's stranger than fiction. Real life these days, just seeing someone means they've SA'd you, and we don't really know what this person went through, but we know what they're saying, and that's enough, right? Their bleeding heart is enough to make us fight for them. No, I'm sorry. I need like cold hard facts in this case. Like I don't want anyone to be miserable, and I don't feel like your gender identity should be a reason for you to be miserable, but I also don't feel like you should be able to sit there and say boo-hoo, poor pity me, and the whole world should move for your sake. The world's a big place, and I really don't think that if you dressed like that and looked like that, that people would have lost their mind and been transphobic against you. Which, if you're non-binary, that doesn't even make it. Okay, just go. Listen, I'm getting off track. Going back to this.
I need to fight for the queer and transgender kids because I was one of them and I didn't have anyone in the system fighting for me. I'm 19 and I'm so tired I feel it in my bones, but
Oh, God. I wanted to forget that line was in here, but I didn't. I'm 19 and I'm so tired I feel it in my bones. It reminds me of once I heard like a 10, 11-year-old boy say, "Oh, XQC didn't stream today. I'm so depressed." Are you serious? You're 19 and you're so tired that you feel it in your bones? I'm twice her age, and I can feel age in my bones already. And there are people out there who are more than twice my age. You have a literal child sitting here talking about how they're so tired they can feel it in their bones. And the tiredness that they're talking about is the pronouns people use when they address them. The tiredness is how people treat them because they have gone out of their way to tell other people to treat them differently. No one would treat you differently if you weren't in front of a microphone saying, "I'm different and you're a bad person for not treating me differently." Because that's what they want. They want to be treated differently. They want you to use different pronouns. They want you to treat them like they aren't like you. I mean, not all of them, but a lot of them do. They want to be snowflakes and special, and they want people to give them an attention. And it's just, this is going to sound a little bit sexist, but it reminds me of how every girl has to be famous on the internet and they'll do anything for it. Who cares? Like, you're just like everyone else. Like, oh, is all this, all these surgeries, all this makeup, all the Botox, is it going to make me special? Nope. It's going to make you look like every other 40-year-old who's had those surgeries. And that's it. You could have lived your life being queer, trans, non-binary, whatever, without needing to do that. You didn't need to go out of your way to let everyone know because people don't care. And it's not a public thing that everyone needs to know about.
I will not give in to the hatred. We are here, we are queer, and we're not going anywhere.
Yeah. So this, as if it wasn't obvious already, is not some sort of like proud, heroic moment. They're just mudslinging. They're there saying, F you. That's what they're doing. They are standing up in front of a bunch of people, telling all of those people, F you, I hate you, my life would have been great if not for you. And it's some sort of surprise that all of these people get angry about it. Even if they weren't Muslim, of course they're going to get angry about it.
LGBTQ plus people will keep existing in the world whether or not you want to erase our existences. And if you take these books out of schools where children are sent to learn, you are aiding and endangering LGBTQ youth's lives. I stand firm in what I believe and I will not back down. It's as simple as not buying mustard if you don't like it.
It's as simple as not buying mustard if you don't like it. It's as simple as not getting up in front of a microphone and telling everyone that you're a queer, trans, non-binary. It's as simple as not tattooing it on your forehead. It's as simple as not telling everyone else that they're bad people if they don't do as you command them to. It's only as simple as you make it, and what you want it to be is obey me or else you're evil, which is what you say they say of you. Do you not see this? Do you not understand the hypocrisy of this? You're saying that they are endangering LGBTQ kids for not doing what you tell them to do.
If you don't want to read it, don't check it out. If these books are banned,
If you don't want to read it, don't check it out. They're talking about the books there, not the mustard. So they're saying that if children don't want to read it, don't check it out. They're telling the adults that they don't have to check out trans books, and that means their children won't check out the trans book. But the children might check out the trans books regardless of what the adults want, regardless of what the parents want for their children. You're saying that parents should have no control whatsoever over what their children consume? The parents should allow their children. Well, what if their children get into something really bad, like gangs or drugs? What if their children are big fans of people like Britney Spears and Taylor Swift, and they decide to make an R18 account the instant they turn 18 and start stripping for money? Don't you think most parents would probably not want their children to be into that sort of thing when they're 8, 10, 12 years old? I mean, this isn't really an argument because you're talking about children. That's the real crux of it all, isn't it? You're talking about children, and here we're listening to a child talk about children.
Only other alternative would to be to turn to the internet, a wildly vast place full of misinformation and bigotry.
Bigotry isn't a word. It's a non-word. In fact, I'm just gonna look it up right now. Bigotry, obstinate or narrow-minded adherence to one's own opinions and prejudices, the state of mind of a bigot, acts or beliefs characteristic of a bigot. Okay, bigot, a narrow-minded person who obstinately adheres to blah blah blah. It's the same thing. So, in other words, someone who won't change their opinion about something. In other words, every single person who's ever lived, is living, or ever will live. Everyone is a bigot about something, therefore everyone is a bigot. It's a useless word used as a catch-all gotcha to say, oh, you're a bad person because you're a bigot. Just like they do with homophobe, just like they do with transphobe, just like they do with white supremacist, racist, sexist, Nazi, whatever. And yet they rarely have the capacity to define any of these things in any sort of way that has any kind of efficacy in making you think that, oh, well, maybe I should rethink my thoughts on this. No, it's mostly just accusations, like what they are doing right here when they say that all of these other people are bad.
These books written by queer and transgender authors for queer and transgender kids are
Written by adults for kids. Right, so the trans authors should be able to make books that kids are taught in schools, and the parents of those kids should have no authority to allow or disallow their kids from reading them. Why? You just said that they shouldn't be forced to go to the internet because the internet is a volatile place full of bigotry. It's also a place full of everything, really. But you've just used the sympathy bait. I mean, saying that they shouldn't be allowed to go to the internet because of how dangerous it is. First of all, no one can stop the kids from going to the internet, really. I mean, they all have phones; they can all do it. So it's ridiculous to say that. On top of that, you're trying to sympathy bait as if like if they didn't use the internet, they wouldn't be. Are you saying you didn't use the internet? I don't believe it. I don't believe that for a second.
the most reliable and safe options. My question
How is that? What does that even mean? The books are reliable and safe options. The books written by trans people to brainwash kids into being trans are the most reliable and safe option to help kids that aren't trans. Like, I mean, they're talking from this very specific viewpoint of children who, as they said earlier, they have no control over whether or not they are LGBTQ or whatever. And there are an unbelievably small amount of people who have that type of, well, any kind of body dysmorphia, but specifically that type of body dysmorphia. A very, 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 like, microscopically small amount. But there's a massive amount of people who suddenly, over the past 2 decades, suddenly have some sort of gender identity that they need to tell the world about. I don't see how this is something that children need to have, and it needs to come through books written by people who are deliberately trying to teach children about this. They say this is the safest option, safer than hearing about it on the internet. Why? Why are the adults making books made to teach little kids about being trans safer than whatever a kid could read on the internet? I mean, that's safer than Wikipedia? Really? You're sitting here saying that you didn't have these books, which then you're a young white person in the USA. You must have grown up with a phone. You must have had access to the internet, and you're going to sit, because otherwise you wouldn't be like you are. Let's be honest. And so you're going to sit here and say that the internet is bad, but that's pretty much how you ended up who you are, right? Are you saying that you ended up in a bad space? Then why should you be a spokesperson for it? Again, you're sitting here saying that you're queer, transgendered, and non-binary, which is an impossibility. It's an impossibility. I want to go over this again. Queer means to be gay. Transgendered means someone identifying as the opposite gender of which they're born as, their genetic gender. And non-binary means that they do not identify as entirely male or entirely female. These are 3 different things. Technically, queer and transgender could be the same thing, but they are 3 different things. And this is the spokesperson for how children should be raised. A 19-year-old.
Is why would you take this resource from kids who need it? Don't pretend you're all doing this for anyone except yourselves. You aren't.
There's the accusations again, just like they called them evil earlier. They're only doing it for themselves. They're trying to raise their children for their own sake, to make themselves happy, right? That's a totally sensible, reasonable thing to say.
Aren't protecting your children. You're all.
And then they start screaming and they start getting booed. And this is where we go to talk about the comments section. So, moving on to the comments. That last line they said about how parents shouldn't pretend that they're doing this for anybody's sake except for their own definitely struck a nerve in the crowd, which means it was spot on. That's how it works, isn't it? If you insult somebody and they get mad because of it, that proves that the insult was correct. So if I were to call this person the hard R and they were to get mad about it, that would prove that they have a sub 70 IQ, right? That's how it works, you know? And the left wing, don't they always say that every accusation is an admittance of guilt? And this person behind a microphone, they are saying that all of the parents are evil and that they're only doing it not for their kids, but for the sake of themselves. Well, every accusation's an admittance of guilt, right? So doesn't that mean that they/them is actually the evil one who's actually up there doing it for themselves? And we go on to the second comment agreeing with them, 2.3 thousand upvotes on top of the 5,000, where they say the way the mic was cut off before the end is also telling. They got louder and louder, shouting angrily into the mic like a child, and they were accusing everybody of being evil and being bad parents. Is that something that they should be allowed to say into a microphone? Is this something that needs to be said in front of an audience? Or is it just a child screaming and raving about how the world should be the way they say it is? And look at the rest of your comment. F you, F everyone, F anyone who doesn't agree with me, F you bigots, and get bent. Yes, well, there's your microphone. Reddit. Grown 40-plus-year-old men being verbally violent towards a 19-year-old teenage adult. Really weird way to word that. Probably because they're queer, trans, non-binary, and you don't actually know what to say about it. And that this is just a run-of-the-mill politics somehow, when it's dystopian shit. Dystopian? Really? You think adults getting angry at another adult? Because that's what's happening here. It's not grown 40-plus-year-old men, oh my god, all losers and predators, oh my god, I bet they're misogynists who hate women, versus a poor widow 19-year-old teenage adult. You described them as an adult. So you just described two adults getting angry at each other. And why are the grown 40-plus-year-old men getting angry? Because they/them called them evil and said they were bad parents and said that their children should be taught to be trans while in school and that the adults should have no control over that. What a big surprise that they're getting upset. Who would have ever thought that that would have made parents angry? Now it's time for dessert. This is the reason I wanted to make this video. We'll start with the rest of it. Dearborn. It's Dearborn, Michigan, by the way, if I failed to mention that. The same city that wanted nothing to do with the results of our election, yet continuously does shite like this. Followed by someone saying, Dearborn actively campaigned for people to not vote for the Democrats. And for some reason, a lot of left-wing folks online still think that Dearborn isn't a right-wing pit. They use the word pit there as in like a pit of vipers or a pit of demons in order to demonify the Republicans and say that they aren't human and that it's okay to be antagonistic or even aggressive towards them. Now, the third comment says, no, leftists do not think Dearborn isn't a right-wing pit. So double negative here. These three people can't even agree. They're all seemingly left-wingers, and they can't agree on anything. The first person says they didn't want to be part of the election. Right? The second person says that they were part of the election, and people online think that they're not a right-wing pit, or at least leftists. And then the third person says leftists do realize that Dearborn is a right-wing pit. I mean, even over something as simple as that, people can't figure it out. It's crazy. Well, moving on, because this comment is absolutely peak right here. This is like a case study. It's a perfect example of the paradox of tolerance. The left wing has been the pity party for decades. They have indoctrinated children who weren't even born 2 decades ago are now brainwashed to think that they are slaves, That grown women now think that they are slaves if they're not allowed to have an abortion for the sake of their career, because they think that's a basic human right, which we'll get to. There's loads of people now who have this crazy mentality that they are an oppressed minority in the USA, which is super wild to me. It's one of the freest places, if not the freest place on the planet, and you're telling me that you're an oppressed minority. The paradox of tolerance? Well, later on they're going to talk about how the paradox of tolerance is a bad thing. So if you get rid of the paradox of tolerance, then that means the left wing should be crushed by the right wing. And as you're a member of the left wing, very clearly, this seems to be a paradox inside of a paradox, because you are disowning the paradox of tolerance, which is the only reason you even exist. Well, moving on, they say, and pay attention, because this is absolute peak right here. At a certain point, we need to have a contract that naturalized citizens sign that they agree basic human rights are settled law and they forfeit their citizenship if they push to revoke them. Things like abortion, gay marriage, women's rights to vote, etc. Now, first of all, I don't think a whole lot of people would say things like abortion and probably even gay marriage are settled law. I also, personally, would not say that they are basic human rights, whether you're homosexual or heterosexual, sorry, dry mouth. I don't think abortion, gay marriage, marriage in general, anyone's rights to vote, these are not basic human rights to me. A basic human right is that if someone is a constructive member of society, they should have food and shelter and live in a safe environment, in a sanitary environment. Those are basic human rights to me. I mean, anything beyond that, anything beyond what you need to survive, and it's not basic anymore. It's sort of a luxury, really. Now, you can make like a whole tier list of how that would go down, and there's no real point to it because we don't need to. We don't need to talk about whether or not it is or isn't a basic human right. They've defined it as a basic human right to push it as a left-wingism, as a you should do this for me, sympathy, sympathy, sympathy. They're saying it to garner sympathy, right? They're saying abortion's a basic human right that's decided by settled law. Well, it's not really decided by settled law, and it's not really a basic human right, but they're saying so to push their agenda. What I really wanted to focus on, however, was they want to have immigrants sign a contract that disallows them free speech. They said have naturalized citizens sign a contract that means that they agree with the laws of that country and that these people forfeit their citizenship if they push to revoke those laws. So they are not, you're saying they're not citizens then? Naturalized citizens who don't have the rights of a U.S. citizen, the right of free speech, the right to criticize the government, the right to protest. These are all rights that we have to argue against laws, to try and change laws. When you say this, you are literally saying that these people should sign away their free will in order to live in the country. And if they do anything that you don't like, that you personally don't like, that they should be sent away. That's what you're saying. Whilst you pretend that you are not the exact same as right-wing extremists who say that all of the immigrants should be immediately deported. Or even not just necessarily extremists. I mean, I'm not right-wing or left-wing, and I think that they should be deported generally. Like, not everyone, but I think there's a huge immigration crisis, and I think there's a lot of illegal immigrants that need to be deported for sure. But here we have a left-winger saying that naturalized citizens need to sign over the rights that they should have as a naturalized citizen, which makes them legally, for every intended purpose, that makes them an American citizen because they've naturalized. I mean, they're saying that they aren't actually a naturalized citizen. I mean, do you not realize the insanity of this? This is absurd, and it gets better. It gets better because, as I said, they're similar to the right wing. They're the same as the right wing or people who aren't even necessarily right wing that are anti-immigration. Their final sentences: if they come here, they need to assimilate and accept that women, gay people, etc. are equals. If they refuse to recognize that, they can go the fuck home. How is that different than what, like, Asmongold or Leaflet or I don't know, whoever, Nick Fuentes or whatever? Like, how is this different than what these people would say? And yet, 56 upvotes from this left-winger saying on a hyper left-wing echo chamber that naturalized citizens shouldn't have the rights of a naturalized citizen. It's peak. Anyway, thanks for watching.
Take care now. Bye-bye then.